Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered. Today I'm here with Maz, Hannah, and Umama, and we're going to talk about public schools versus Islamic schools.
Okay, so to start off, where did everybody go to school? I personally went to private school. I went to MCC for grades 1 to 8th, and so I spent a large portion of my academic career in religious school. What about you guys?
I went to public school my whole life. I had Quran class at the masjid, but for the most part, just schooling wise was all through public school.
Same, yeah. Been through public school all my life, and I went to Sunday school for a little bit when I was a kid, and then growing up, I also had like a Quran class on the side.
I went to public school too, and then I got like my Islamic studies through Sunday school and Quran class as well.
Okay, so reflecting on your experiences, do you guys think that you would have rather gone to religious school or stayed in public?
So for me, like my experience with public school, like I really enjoyed it. And I had some friends that were in Islamic schools. And the friends that I did have that were in Islamic school, like full time, like I didn't really hear good experiences, the experiences that they had. So like based on their experience and the experience that I had through public school, I personally like the choice that my parents made for me to go to public school.
I'm kind of on the same boat with you because I know people too have had like not the best experiences with Islamic schools, and I wouldn't be the person I am today if I changed that about myself. So I'm 100% like fine with public schools.
I would disagree. I think I would have hoped, or at least I would have wanted to be in Islamic school, at least like at my pre-K, kindergarten to like kindergarten to like first grade even, just because I feel like it kind of builds a foundation. You're at such a young age, and I feel like at that age you're retaining a lot of information, right? Like that's like your, I guess, like those like beginning like first 5 to 6 years or whatever, you're gonna be gaining all those like those surahs and like those little stories of the prophets and stuff like that. Like that is stuff that you'll learn at that age. I think it's a good foundation to have. So if I were to go back, I would have wished my parents had put me into Islamic school, basically. I think, and also like I feel like I know a lot of people that have like a lot of like their close friends that they know from like Islamic school that they had like back in the day, like in like kindergarten, like preschool, whatever it was. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I mean, I agree with Ma. So I went to religious school for a really long time, and I think that it's a really different experience and an experience I'm really glad to have had, to be able to take a break from school every single day with the expectation that we're going to go and pray Salah. Like every single day for 8 years, I prayed Dhuhr on time, right? And like aside from even like that small religious like thing, you also have this concept of you grow up with a foundation of religion. You have like Quran classes, Arabic classes, Islamic classes, Islamic studies, excuse me, and like aside from academics, like we're Muslims, and so like for me, I think that having that opportunity to be around other Muslims and to learn how to be a good Muslim starting from such a young age, it was something that cannot be replaced no matter how much you go to like Sunday school, for example.
So for me, like I get the point that you guys are making, but for me, like growing up, like I did not like school. Like just going to school, having that like routine, like I did not enjoy it. Like it just seemed forced, and like obviously being like going to school is just part of routine. But I feel like if I went to Islamic school, like I feel like since it's like 5 days a week, and it's from like 8 to 2, 8 to 3 or whatever, like I feel like I just get tired of it. So when I had that balance with like public school and Sunday school, I feel like that created a good balance for me. And on top of that Quran class, like that balance allowed me to like also find like Islam on my own too. So I like the fact that I had that balance, and it was like 50-50 in a sense.
Was your regular school not 8 to 2 or 8 to 3?
No, I'm not saying. No,
'Cause
I'm
so
like giving an
confused.
example. Like you'd go to school from 8 to 3. It gets tiring. It gets annoying. Like it just like it did not make me like school. That's what I'm saying. Like in general, like
Okay.
going to public school, like I just didn't like
But like
it.
with that logic that you just explained, you're adding an extra day of school. Whereas if you just did the same
No, but
five
the thing
days
is,
in the same time, you're getting both, right? You're
Yeah,
getting school
no.
and you're getting that Islamic
But the thing
aspect,
is,
right?
I'm saying like it's not like a repetitive thing you're learning day to day. So
But
like,
I don't think they're gonna be learning the same thing every day. Like
no, it's not about
you're not-
learning the same thing. Like I feel like if I went to like going to school and having that routine, like I just didn't like it. But if I went to like having that like on Sunday or like Saturday, like I actually look forward to like Sunday school because it was like it's not like an everyday thing that I do every single day.
Oh, okay.
So that was like my experience
Okay,
specifically.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So I personally did like a year where I took a break from going to private school to public school, And so in that year, I also went to Saturday school, I think it was, and I did not enjoy that experience as much as I enjoyed going to religious school. And I know you said that it might seem like it comes off as repetitive, but you're learning something different every day. You also have like all the subjects that you're learning that you would do if you were a regular public school kid. And I found that environment is an environment that cannot be replicated in public school, and it can't be replicated in even weekend school, because you develop a relationship with your teacher and the other students in a way that, like, I'm gonna be honest, like, I feel like only like because of cultural values and religious values that those relationships can be made. Like, there's like a different almost vibe to it than it would be in public school. And I noticed that when I went to public school, the way that teachers treated you was a lot different from the way that they did in middle school, you know? Or I mean, I speak to middle school because that's where I had left like private school. And it's like there was like a kindness and a generosity and kind of a care for the students that I feel like came only from religion. And I experienced that at MCC, and I really enjoyed that. And so I think that that was one of the most striking differences when I finally left.
So one thing, like, how was the transition for you when you transferred? Like you said, you went to private school, Islamic school till you went to high school, right? So how was that transition for you? Do you think it was like super abrupt, or like it was hard to transition, or how was that?
I don't think so. I think it was normal because I was not living in a bubble where it was only Islam and only other Muslim people. I did every type of sport, me and my brother. Like, we did soccer on the weekends, swimming. Like, we interacted with people that weren't Muslim. It was not like kind of a cult like education, like a cult upbringing. And so I didn't think that it was that abrupt, but I did see in a lot of other people, I'm going to be honest, like, I think that's a downside of religious school. I did see people that grew up in a bubble whose parents did not have them in activities where they were interacting with other people that were not Muslim, and when they went to like high school, they went crazy. Like, all of a sudden there were all these people and all these things that they were not allowed to do that everybody around them was doing, and they went and took it like the opposite direction. Like, where non-Muslim kids were doing certain things, they were doing like 10 times worse than that because they like were like watching them do something they never saw.
My like experience from just like talking to people that I know who went to like Islamic school have all kind of said like the consensus is that it's super hard. And like the fact that it's super hard is that you're not only are you taking your regular classes, you're taking the, you know, your Islamic studies, you're taking your Quran classes. What's the third one? There's a third.
Arabic.
And then Arabic as well, right? So like that is, I feel like it's a lot on a kid, right? It's like, you know, you're going to a private school, you're trying to manage all those things, and then at the same time, like, you know, if you do like extra like Quran, or like, you know, if you want to try to like branch out and do like sports and things like that, it's like for a kid going through like a whole entire day like that, it's like it's draining, right? So I mean, that's probably one thing that I would say like might be a little bit too hard on it. And then on top of that, I feel like, you know, money wise, right? Like, I don't know if you guys like, I don't, like, you probably know more, right? But like, I'm pretty sure it's not cheap, right? Like, Islamic school is not cheap. So I don't know if that like kind of strays, like has people like kind of go away from it just because it's like they might not have the option to, right? Like, you know, maybe like one of our family members might have wanted to, but then it's like, oh, you know what? This is like a cheaper alternative, like going to public school. So I don't know.
So before this pod, I actually asked my parents. I was like, if you could choose right now to send us to Islamic school or public school, where would you send us, right? And my mom said I would send you guys to Islamic school. And I was like, okay, like, why is the reason? And she said, like, obviously, like, the basic foundation that you get through Islamic school. And then on top of that, she said, like, at that time, like, we didn't have the money to, like, afford to send our kids to Islamic school because all of them are private, right? So, like, what you said, like, really, like, basically a lot of people can relate to that. Like, it is expensive, regardless if it's an Islamic school or any other school. Private schools are just expensive, so Islamic school goes into that. So I feel like that's one option that just takes it for people. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna send my kids to public school.
No, similarly, my dad and I had this conversation, and like, alhamdulillah, my family is a lot more well off now than when my parents first came. Like, obviously, as immigrants, it's a little more difficult financially, and I feel like a lot of our families can relate to that. And my dad always talks about sending us to Islamic school as that was like an investment. You know, like, he feels like for whatever finances and whatever money they could have spent on vacations or doing something, or like renovating a house or something, he feels like that money went to something that's even more worth it, because for all that we've learned in Islamic school and for all that we've done, he's getting hasanat for that with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he created a foundation where he's raising Muslim kids that are practicing and religious. And so I think that finances are definitely something that could be turned away, but I also understand why tuition is set at a high price. Like, when you go to a private school, unfortunately, you are not getting um, like private schools are not afforded the luxury that public schools are because they're not going off tax dollars. They're not going off of like it's solely like teachers and donations and the
tuition.
parents like yeah paying for tuition.
A lot of Islamic schools I feel are like known to be disorganized and stuff as compared to like regular public schools. And I like the idea of like incorporating Deen into your kids' future and just let them know like this is what we're doing, this is what we're about. And that's why I kind of at first I didn't like Sunday school I guess growing up, but I enjoyed it because I had the regular public school which I wouldn't change because I really enjoyed that. And then Sunday school as well, I learned about religion. I was really smart and I got that knowledge. So that's why I feel like if I would go through it with a kid of mine, I'd do the public school and I'd go like a Sunday school route or have like something on the side where they're also learn about their religion and Deen more than because I mean I don't know, just the 5 days a week institution and stuff. I don't know how I feel about like this Islamic school nonstop type.
I feel like something that's forgotten is that like you can't like you could have your kid go to like Islamic school, but like if you don't have like that structure at home, then like it's then you're basically having your kid go to Islamic school just for them to when they eventually have to leave to just kind of like forget everything, right? Like I feel like from the people that I've talked to at least, right, who have gone to Islamic school, they've said that like if you don't have that like structure at home and if you don't have that like continuous practice at home, then it's it's hard to kind of just like everything you do in school like you learn, that's one thing, but then like if you're not relaying that into like your life and like it's just kind of hard, I guess. So
yeah, so what like Maz said about like having that like structure at home. So for example, my younger sister Safa, she went to Islamic school, Sunday school for a year, and then me and my sisters went for like 2-3 years. So we went a lot more than she did. But the thing is with my younger sister, she spent a lot more time with my parents at home. And I genuinely think my parents are like a good example of like how they are with their deen. My dad's super religious, my mom's super religious. And the fact that she spent a lot of time with them, like, she prays 5 times a day. She makes sure she reads Quran once a day. And like she has that, like having that structure at home and having that like set example at home, I feel like helps a lot. So she didn't go to full-time Islamic school. She went to public school. She goes to Niles West, and like we all know like the surroundings of like a public school, like an American public school, like it can be like sometimes it can be very like peer pressured, and like you feel like you want to do these things that other people are doing that don't really align with your religion. But like my sister, like since she has such a strong foundation because of my parents, she could care less about those things. And I've had conversations about it. I was just like, oh, so like what do you think about this? And then she's like, I don't care. And that's because she like has a great example at home. So what you said is like really true. You need to have that structure at home.
Do you guys think that you can confidently speak to the idea that you would not want to go to private school or like religious school, if you guys have never had the experience of being like enrolled as a full-time student in religious school? Because I've had the experience of being like a full-time student in a public school and a religious school. So can you guys confidently say like that you would not want to do it given a different circumstance, even try it if you've never had that experience?
I'm not that like against it where it's like I would not even consider it like public school all the way 100%. But I mean, it's just I like the way I was born and raised. But it's definitely something to consider about, and there's a lot of different factors that you can take into account. Part of me doesn't like the idea that it's like I feel like Islamic schools are more they have the administration model of schools is more like old mindset, like just the way it's set up and just.
In what sense?
By like, not like I feel like the board and stuff. I'm not trying to call out anybody, but it's just I feel like that's how Islamic schools are a little. I don't know how to explain it. It's very old style, old fashioned type. At least the ones that we're familiar with in this area, I feel. As compared to just like regular basic schools, there's not that much of a. It's more of a North American structure, I feel, which is something I'm more accustomed to and comfortable with.
So, Hannah, like since you went to Islamic school, can you say that the education that they provided, not like Islamic education, but just like regular, like, math, science, or whatever, do you think it was the same value that you got provided at like a public school?
No. In the most honest way, I definitely think that enrollment in a private school or like a private religious school, and this is not speaking to every school, but I definitely think that during my time, like for the sacrifice of like for the religious aspect of school, we definitely sacrifice like the academics, because when I mean I'm a tutor now, and when I look at my children that go to private school, religious school, versus the kids that go to public school, and I see like the kind of work that they do in public school, and I see the kind of education they're getting, like it's incomparable. Like they're doing so many different things at a public school at a higher level, and it's to the point where I know somebody that transferred from MCC. They transferred from like a private religious school, and then they went to public school, just up to Parkview, like right down the street. And what happened was they were born here. They spoke English, like that was their first language, but they were placed in an ELL English class because their scores and their academic proficiency was not at the level of other students in that age group, you know. And that's not to say that it was like the school's fault, but I definitely think that there's different standards that are set in public schools for academics, and there's also more resources because, again, with finances come resources, you know. Like there's teachers in public school that like say that they had like the student aides, you know, the teachers that would sit in classrooms with them for the kids that needed extra help, and that's not something that MCC could have like afforded, I would say, like especially because like again finances are an issue. But I think that you do sacrifice in some sense academics for the religion.
So the question that you said was, can you speak confidently on like wanting to go to public school or private school? So for me, like I can't say confidently that, you know, for a fact I would not go to Islamic school or like a private school. But the thing is, like the North American education system, just for like regardless of religion, like it's been around for a while. It's established, so we know like what works, what doesn't. For Islamic school, it hasn't been they haven't been prevalent for a while as much as North American like regular education. So I feel like I feel like there's still so much more that needs to be done within like these, even like not even Islamic, just like religious schools. Like, you know, there's like lack of like student counselors, like lack of like counselors for like mental health and everything. I feel like there's so much like lacking in that sense, not just like education too, just like resources, like Hannah said, like with finances come resources. So I feel like maybe down the line, like there are better Islamic schools that have these resources, then I would probably consider sending my kids to those schools. And if the academics are good or better, then I would definitely think about sending them to that school.
How do you guys feel about like, or like I guess I could ask you this because like, you know, you had the experience, but like the social aspect, right? Like, you know how, you know, after elementary school, I'm pretty sure it's like when middle school starts, you are separated, right? Guys and girls are separated. So, you know, are they not?
No, that was not the case. Like we had boys and girls in the same classroom.
But like not just like classes, but like
Interacting and
stuff like that, right? Like it's like it's frowned upon, right? For the most part, it's not permitted, probably, right?
No.
Yeah, it's not permitted, but I mean, yeah,
No, like it is permitted. It's
really?
not like
I mean,
that's banned from talking to you.
I don't know. From what I've heard from I guess other people, like they've said that it's for the most part it's been separated. Like they separate.
Like 10 years older.
a lot of schools are
10
like
years older.
a lot of schools are just like segregated. Like I was just at Dar es Salaam and they were showing us like, mashallah, there's a boys wing and a girls wing, and they're both like equally sized, everything, classrooms, this and that, but they're like, don't get them confused. The gymnasium, beautiful gymnasium, just built it. Women enter through that door. That's their entrance and exit. Up there, that's their entrance and exit, and this is the boys' entrance and exit.
Yeah. So my point is, so like the whole point is that like, you know, they have that separation, right? So like let's say when the time comes when they have to go to high school and then they have to, you know, interact with the opposite gender, you know, how are they facing that, right? Like, I mean, I guess I was thinking that you had that experience, but I guess not. But I don't know. For me, I because again, like people have told me that like, you know, some people that they were just like they couldn't communicate, like they literally just wouldn't be able to talk to the opposite gender. They just didn't know like how to even go about it, and it just had them just become like not like sociable people. And it's just like, even though they're probably just regularly probably sociable people, right, with their own inner circle, but like with their own like the gender that they talk to, but then, you know, they just never had that experience, so they didn't know how to. So
in that case, I really cannot blame religious school. I think in that situation, I have to blame the parents because they are raising their children in a solely religious environment. And when I see what Dar es Salaam is doing, like I understand religiously and Islamically, like we are not supposed to be interacting with the opposite gender as freely as we do now. But when I look at that in the context of we're living in America, you know, and we're living in a country in a time where it's so like common, like you absolutely have to do it. Like it's not like avoidable. And I see that there are kids that truly don't know how to socialize. I think it's the fault of the parents for not normalizing that this is the country and the reality that we live in. Like for me, I did not have like my childhood growing up, like even though I went to religious school, it was not just my bubble of Muslim people and Muslim acquaintances and family friends and stuff like that. I did sports where I saw non-Muslim kids, you know, like we would talk about religion and stuff, you know, kids say anything. But I also knew, like, at the end of the day, like, this was my religion, and I knew that there were certain things I couldn't do because of my religion, but that didn't stop me from normalizing and, like, being, like, a regular kid, you know? So I definitely have to I have to hold the parents accountable for that.
So, like, yeah, parents are accountable, but for some of my friends that have been to Islamic school, there have been, like, instances, yeah, like, for a fact, like, in Islam, like, there, like, we need to be segregated, like, it is a thing, but sometimes, like, some, like, teachers or, like, you know, board of administration take it way too far, you know, like, for example, like, one of my friend, like she wore like a different color abaya, and they were like, oh yeah, like that's distracting to the boys, don't wear that. And like if you go to school 5 days a week and like that's implemented in your brain, like even though your parents are cool with it or whatever, like that like affects you mentally, and then you're just like scarred. You're like, okay, like I can't talk to a guy, like I can't to look to a guy, and that does like affect your social aspect of talking to like the opposite gender. So it has happened, but it also is like a parent's responsibility to like implement that within the child's mindset.
But also with that example, is that the religious school's fault, or is it that it was like a greater issue? Because that's like internalized misogyny. Like that's an issue that even public schools are facing, where they say that girls can't wear tank tops because it's distracting to boys. That happened at West, where they were protesting the dress code because a teacher had told a student that it was distracting to another male teacher or something. You know, so like that's like a bigger issue than that.
Yeah.
But
So I feel like with the internalized misogyny, you're right. Like even though like, do you think that it's more like amplified like within Islamic schools than it is in public schools?
I'd have to say yes. I would have to say, like, in a sense, misogyny and almost sexism are, like, definitely amplified in religious school, because I think that people have an issue, and not just, like, this institution, but I feel like it happens everywhere, where people mix religion with culture, and that's a very dangerous thing when you have high-powered, or to a student's mind, like a high-powered individual, like a teacher, because we hold our teachers with like such high regard, and they're just kind of teaching you stuff that's not like religion, it's culture.
I feel like regardless of like, you know, whether the teachers are like, you know, like pressing you to, or like telling you like, oh no, you can't be talking to the opposite gender. You like, I feel like me, like even if I went to Islamic school, like as like just like a Muslim kid in an Islamic school, I would just feel like I shouldn't, or I feel like I wouldn't do it in general, just because it's like for my own like izzat and my own like, it's just like real, like I shouldn't be doing this in general. I'm literally in an Islamic school, right? Like we know all the parents, like my parents probably know the parents of these kids too. So it's like, you know, it's in that sense, I feel like you don't have that within yourself, right? But then that's when the problem for me, I think, comes in, where it's just like when these people, or when these kids go to like the public schools, they don't like in their minds, like it won't matter anymore, right? And that's why I feel like I've seen, at least, and like, you know, a lot of people that just like their transition from Islamic school to like public school is just crazy, because it's like a whole new world to them, right? And it's just like they're free, they could do whatever they want, they've never seen this side of the world, so it's like I don't know. I feel like that's why, like when you think about it, and when we think about it, right, in our future, you know, inshallah, with our kids, we're gonna want to think like, you know, when's a good age, like when's a good time for us to like take our kids out of Islamic school, or you know, if we want to have them go through the whole path of it, right? And then it all comes back to the whole, like, again, like I'm stressed it before, like the foundation, right? Like the foundation of, you know, that you learn in the beginning, and then on top of that, the having that in the home as well. So yeah.
I mean, to answer that question, I think that also, just to address what you were saying, like Izzat and stuff, I feel like we're kind of forgetting that they're kids, you know? Like, most of the institutions go up to middle school, like, they're kids. Like, I don't think that that's, like, such a big thing on their minds as much as, like, being normal, you know? Just being a child. But, like, personally, I think that what my parents did was a good thing age-wise, especially because I was doing other activities and I wasn't like stuck in my own little religious school bubble. My parents didn't try to create like a Muslim reality for me. They tried to create like a regular American like reality for me. And so I think that me leaving religious school at 8th grade, which is kind of an older age, I was like 13, I don't think that it was a bad thing, because I mean, I feel like you guys can agree I'm pretty well socialized. I'm pretty relatively normal, you know, like, didn't come out a freak from private school or anything, but, I think that that's something that once that, like, we cross that bridge, I think you say, Like that's something to decide. Like right now, my parents are deciding. My sister's in 5th grade, so she's about to enter middle school, and so they're still trying to decide like, is it more beneficial to have her leave and go to I almost said medical school to go to middle school so that she can have like a better foundation to start high school through academics, or does she want to stay in that, or do we want to keep her in the environment? You ask her if she wants to go to public school, she says no, I want to stay here because she has all her friends, she has like a well-established life here, she has a well-established life in her school setting, and she likes her teachers and she likes like the routine. And so it's just something that I feel like you have to go by a case-by-case basis. Like, for example, if I knew that my kids were a little wild or that they had, like, these inclinations to do all these things that I personally wouldn't want them to be like, you know, because, like, we are exposed through everything through social media nowadays. I'd probably keep them in private school longer. You know, like, I know a family that pulled their kid out of high school or, like, Niles West and sent them to, like, a religious school because he went to high school and went crazy.
Yeah.
So
I feel like regardless of, you know, if you decide to go the Islamic school route for your kids or, you know, the public school route, like making sure that your kids have a good group of Muslim friends is super crucial.
Yeah.
I think that's like, and I can attest to that myself, you know, like throughout high school, I probably didn't have as many Muslim friends, but then it was, for me, it was kind of, it happened after high school. But honestly, like I know people that have, you know, these friend groups that they have back in like middle school and they still are able to retain them. Like, yeah, they'll have their other friends as well, but then like they know that those Muslim friends that they have will always be there for them. They know that those Muslim friends they could relate to on another level that they wouldn't be able to with these other friends, right? So that is something that I would definitely say is crucial.
you know what's interesting in that sense is that I went from having all Muslim friends in middle school to going to high school and then having like 2. You know, like it was like the complete opposite, and it was such a strange change. Like, and it's not because I didn't want Muslim friends, it was because I didn't find a lot of Muslim friends. And you would think that I went to Niles West, like there would be like limitless opportunity, but like there really wasn't. And so like a majority of my close friend group was non-Muslim. But now as I've gotten older and I've had like more of like a environment where I can have more Muslim friends, I've definitely made that transition. And you should want to have Muslim friends, because what was that that when you go to Jannah, like it's like ask about me when you go to Jannah, because like you might have a friend that did not go to Jannah, but when you ask about him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say go and bring him to Jannah with you, you know. So that's why it's so important to have Muslim friends.
So for me, like I can genuinely say, like even though I didn't go to even though I didn't go to private school, like having those Muslim friends like helped me so much throughout my high school experience, middle school experience, and even college. And I had this one friend, and she was just like, oh, like why do you like have so many like Muslim friends, and why don't you have like any non-Muslim friends? And like if you think about it, like having like especially in like high school and college, like people are wilding out, okay? And like when you have Muslim friends, like they understand that like you can't do certain things, you can't go to certain places, or like you can't like look a certain way, dress a certain way. And like having Muslim friends, like it made it so much easier because I didn't have to explain myself. The amount of times, like, you know, even in like elementary school, when I was in like public school, like it would be hot outside and I would like be fully like covered, like I was wearing shorts or anything, and a bunch of people would be like, oh, like why are you like, aren't you hot in that, like why are you wearing that, like why do you do that, like why can't you wear this and that? And having to explain myself like was mentally exhausting. So I genuinely like love the fact, and it actually helped me like with my whole experience, and having my deen like implemented in me was because I had Muslim friends.
I just came to the conclusion that like all of our situations vary so much. Like you didn't have Muslim friends in public school, but you found Muslim friends. You had Muslim friends in private school, went to public school and did not have as many Muslim friends. You were in public school and had Muslim friends and kept Muslim friends, however. So I think I just came to the conclusion that like every situation and scenario differs, and we all have different opinions and going on forward. So like when it comes down to it, where would you send your kids?
I'm
Like-
definitely starting off with religious school. Like, I think that it's really important, and it gave me a foundation that I'm happy to have. When I was at religious school, I didn't like it. You know, I hated it. I would complain about it. But now that I've gotten older, I look back and I see so many benefits and how I was protected from so many negative things in the world because of it. And I think that that's something I want to do for my kids. But obviously, I'm going to send them to, like, high school normally. Like, I feel like that's something that they can't. But, like, then it comes to, like, a different decision. Like, do I want to send them in middle school, blah, blah, blah. But, again, like, cross that bridge when it comes.
I would say, I said it before, I would definitely, you know, barring hopefully, you know, financially everything's, you know, good. But yeah, I think at least up until high school, like 4th grade, right? That's the high school cutoff. For me, it was 5th, but yeah, 4th. No, sorry, before for me.
Middle school?
No,
Middle
sorry, no, not high school. Sorry, I'm elementary school.
That's fifth.
For me, elementary school was or middle school was 5th through 8th. I don't know why everybody
Yeah,
else
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so up until elementary school at least, and then middle school, I think I would make the transition to public school.
That's cool. I'm okay with that as well. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, like
I mean,
I agree with that. What, man?
You gave him permission.
No, I
thank
was
you,
like, I was like, I
thank
agree
you.
with that.
I needed
I'm
you to be
thinking- I was
cool
thinking of
with
that-
my
that,
decisions.
like,
Go for it with Timur's blessing.
I was thinking of
Thank you.
Sander.
Jazakallah
Yeah, I will
khair.
be in the
Brother.
picture, inshallah. Be a grand
My godfather, right?
godfather.
Yeah, no, I would probably like send my kids to Islamic school, like, but I need to know for a fact that it's like a well established Islamic school. You know, the education, everything is really well, and hopefully, inshallah, in the future there will be a lot more Islamic schools that are well established. So for a fact, elementary school, yeah, but then middle school probably not. But before I was like, no, I'm not gonna do Islamic school. But like honestly, having this conversation really changed my mind. So
And I think you know, like I said, and you know, you said that like, you know, you want to do at least elementary school, right? I think when they're in middle school though, like it's not gonna stop. Like they're still gonna be.
They're gonna have a choice
No.
to-
I mean like they're still gonna go to Sunday school.
Yeah,
when they're in
yeah,
middle school,
110%.
and they're still gonna go to their Quran classes. Like that, it's not gonna stop. And then
Yeah.
it's still gonna be, you know, like inshallah, it's all gonna be good at home as far
Yeah.
as like, you know, practicing, and like they're gonna be on that as well, because
Yeah.
you can't just like, you have to have it retained, right? You
Yeah.
can't just be like done this and then that's it. Like
because
no.
if you cut it off, like pretend like I stopped sending my kids
Yeah.
to Islamic school at like 5th grade and they go to middle school, right? If you just cut it off with no other outlet to practice their
Right.
religion on like a weekly or daily or whatever basis, right? Then I feel like they're like, okay, yeah, this isn't part of my life anymore. Like I don't care. Like I'm not gonna do anything about it. So like yeah, it is really important to have like either Sunday school, Quran class, just something to like keep that deen within them.
Yep.
100%.
Cool. Well,
So with that being said, thank you guys for staying tuned. Thank you guys for joining me in this discussion. You guys know the socials. I think it's unfiltered.yom and then our YouTube. Thank you guys. Assalamu alaikum.